Have you ever pretended to be an expert just to get through an interview? I still laugh when I think about how I got hired at this old job. On paper, I was supposed to be a C# expert. In reality, I had never written a single line of it. But thanks to a very determined technical manager and a CEO who didn't understand tech, I somehow walked in for an interview I wasn't qualified for and walked out with a job I was absolutely perfect for. The company was small, maybe 20 people total, with a 5-person development team led by a quiet, very capable technical manager named Mark. Above him was the CEO, Carla, who understood the business but treated anything technical like a foreign language. The only thing she knew for certain was that her product was built in C#, and that her favorite developer, someone she swore was irreplaceable, had just quit to her. That meant one thing. The next person hired had to be another C# specialist. But to Mark, this was a once-in-a-decade opportunity. His team already had more than enough C# developers. What they didn't have, and what he desperately needed, was a real database expert. The company processed an enormous amount of data, but the structure behind it was a mess. Information was duplicated everywhere. Tables contradicted each other. Basic operations took so long that employees had learned to click, run, and then go make coffee. And every time something broke, it broke in a new and creative way. He didn't want to lose the chance to fix all of that just because Carla believed she needed another coder. Somehow, he managed to slip a database-focused job description into the hands of a recruiter while still calling it a C# position. That's how my phone rang. At the time, I had more than 10 years of experience designing and fixing databases, but I couldn't have written Hello World in C# if you paid me. Even so, they sent me a skills assessment before the interview. When I opened the test, I immediately noticed a huge bolded warning at the top. These questions are extremely difficult. You may not be able to answer any. Do not feel pressured to attempt questions you find too difficult. These questions are not related to the position. I remember thinking, what kind of job test warns you that nothing on it matters? Then I looked at the questions and realized they were all database questions, and not even complicated ones. I finished the entire thing in about 3 minutes and walked back into the hallway. Genuinely confused, I knocked on Mark's door to ask if I'd misunderstood the assignment, but he quickly gestured for me to go back into the conference room. A moment later, he joined me and closed the door. His office was right next to Carla's, so he couldn't talk freely in there. Once we sat down, he explained everything: how badly the company needed a database expert, how the CEO insisted the role be labeled as a C# job, how he slipped the real requirements to the recruiter, and why he had to add that huge warning to the test after another recruiter had questioned him about it. It all made sense now. Then we spent almost half an hour talking about actual database work. C# never came up once. When we were done, he looked genuinely relieved. "You're exactly who we need," he said. "You'll do great here, but before I recommend you, you need to talk to the CEO. And when she asks about your strongest technical skill, remember, today you are a C# expert." I wasn't sure I could pull that off, but I figured the worst case was that I didn't get the job. The best case, I could actually help this company. So I walked into Carla's office. She was friendly, upbeat, and completely confident in what she believed she needed. After a minute or two of polite conversation, she asked the question Mark warned me about. "So, what would you say is your #1 technical strength?" I paused like I was considering my entire career. Then I said, "Well, I've worked with a lot of different technologies, but I'd say my strongest skill is probably C#." Her whole face lit up. "That's exactly what we're looking for." Just like that, the rest of the conversation shifted to start dates and salary expectations. Before I left the room, she offered me the job. That night on my drive home, I stopped at a bookstore and bought a beginner's C# book, something like Learn C# in 14 days. I spent the next 2 weeks studying just enough to get by, and when I finally started, everything Mark had hinted at was true. The databases needed a complete overhaul, which took most of my time for months. The C# work made up maybe 10 to 20% of my job, and even then, it was mostly small updates and fixes I could handle while still learning. In the end, the company ran better, the database operations went from minutes to seconds, and the CEO never once questioned my background. As far as she was concerned, she had hired the C# expert she always wanted, even though what she really got was exactly what the company needed.